Good morning. Once again, we come to your living room on a lovely Friday morning. Today is the 12th of October 2012 and you're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports. As usual, let's take a look at some of the headlines and the stories that's been happening over the past week. Starting up on the front page, we have the latest developments in terms of the FUTA strike and, positive news starting off. FUTA calls off strike but says it's not satisfied with the government's response. The Federation of University Teachers Associations said yesterday it was calling off its strike action and was returning to work from Monday. And it said that the decision was based mainly on its responsibility towards the student. Now, as much as this is a very good news in terms of the education, we have a much more threatening danger imminent coming up, which is, in the second page it says, now teachers and principals are threatening to strike. Now this is not a good precedent at all, indicating signs of an impending crisis that would cripple the country's school education system. Thousands of teachers and principals are threatening to march towards the Education Ministry on the 24th of October. And this protest is all about recently hundreds of illegal transfers to national schools involving teachers who have been in service for not more than 1 year were approved by ministry officials, and this strike is basically protesting against such transfers, and it is not good news at all for the education system in Sri Lanka. And coming back to the front page, once again we have yet another a phenomena where we have a question now whether the JSC secretary has really assaulted himself. Now earlier on, a couple of months back, or rather last month I think, we also had a story where the end result was pretty much the end conclusion was that the victim in question would probably have assaulted himself. Now, Minister Vimal Veerawansa said yesterday that the assault on JSC Secretary Manjula Tilakaratne was beset with several unanswered questions. The facts surrounding the attack are rather suspicious. Why did the man who spoke of a threat to his life send the police officer assigned to protect him on leave? So, the question here once again is, did he assault himself? And that's asked by Mr. Vimal Veerawansa, who says that this is a very suspicious case once again. Moving on to another local story, in terms of business, we have the SCB report suggesting that red tape is holding back a lot of foreign direct investment. Sri Lanka must undergo comprehensive reforms to reduce bureaucratic red tape and improve the efficiency of state-owned enterprises if the country is to follow through with its post-conflict economic development. And what it's basically saying is that we need to definitely focus more on improving our FDI inflows, and that red tape is actually holding this back, creating restrictions for the inflow of FDIs. Moving on, yet again in the business sector, taking a look at the Daily FT, the World Bank chief says that developing countries may not be immune to global uncertainty. Ahead of the annual meetings in Tokyo, the World Bank president Jim Yong Kim on Thursday warned that developing countries which have been driving world's growth are not immune to the increased uncertainty in the global economy. And he goes on to say, where in challenging times food prices remain high and volatile, growth in high-income countries is weak, and developing countries, which have been the engine of growth, will not be immune to the increased uncertainty in the global economy. So there we go. That was the World Bank chief saying that developing countries may not be immune to the global uncertainties in the future. And also taking a look at another local development, South Asia's first cash deposit ATM network launched. Sri Lankan consumers will enter the era of direct cash payments through ATMs next Monday, when 5 cash deposit taking ATMs will start operating in Colombo for the first time. And the Minister of of Industry and Commerce goes on to say that he's pleased to say that we are setting a new record in the SAARC region with a commercial-scale deposit-taking ATM network going live in Colombo. So that's good news once again. South Asia's first cash deposit ATM network will be launched in Colombo from next Monday. Moving on to sports. We have a few interesting stories, especially in terms of the local rugby arena. There's a story saying that 3 players who were involved in the league for Havelocks SC are missing at the practices of the national sevens team. Now, the unexplained absence of some of the Havelocks players have been coming under questions or has raised eyebrows of the rugby fraternities, especially as no disciplinary measures seems to be forthcoming. Now, this is a precedent that we've seen before, where players, the national sevens international rugby tournaments comes right at the end of the local rugby league as well. So this is unfortunate for Sri Lanka, because players tend to get injured, players are worn out of 6 months of heavy training, matches almost every week, and we lose a lot of players due to injury, and also some players may not really be willing to put another additional 3 months as rugby part of their year spending on rugby as well. But then again, it's unfortunate for Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka will be going to Mumbai, and we unfortunately will be missing about 4 players who represented Havelocks SC, and they will be missing out on the upcoming international tournaments. Moving on to some soccer news. England's national centre gets royal approval. Now, English soccer's £105 million plan to win the World Cup was granted royal approval on Tuesday, as the president of the Football Association, the president of the FA, President Prince William, approved it. And he was not born 37 years ago when this was initially planned out, but then again, they are planning on winning a major trophy for the first time since 1966. And I think the English deserve some success in terms of sport, and I think this plan would probably be a good plan for the future of English soccer as well. Now, All Blacks put silverware on show. As we all know, the All Blacks have been continuing their winning streak, their perfect form, right throughout after their win at the World Cup. And the New Zealand Rugby Union celebrated the All Blacks' win in the inaugural Rugby Championship with a public display of the team's trophy cabinet in Wellington on Wednesday. And the championship trophy created this year when Argentina joined New Zealand, Australia and South Africa in an expansion of the Tri-Nations format. And it was lined up alongside the Rugby World Cup and Bledisloe Cup in the display as well. So there we go, a look at sports for you. And also taking a look at some of the sports stories in terms of Sri Lankan rowing. Now, this is something that has been developing over the years, and we are, I think, moving on to a new, world-class rowing track, I would call it, or rather a rowing route as well. And Olympic gold medalist Mahe Drisdale is coming to Sri Lanka to boost rowing. A gold medalist at the recently concluded Summer Olympics in London and 5 times world rowing champion, Mahe Drisdale is scheduled to arrive in Sri Lanka for a short visit in October. And I think this will definitely help in boosting rowing in Sri Lanka, which is becoming quite a popular sport, especially among the schools in Colombo and also the forces and the universities, because this is one of their main sports, and they take center stage in their sporting calendars as well. So that's a look of the sports news for you. Moving on to entertainment and lifestyle stories. Today is the National Day of Spain, and just highlighting Pablo Picasso, one of the great one of the great painters of the century. And as you can see, some of the pictures here are depictions of his work. So the National Day of Spain is a commemoration, and there we go. Pictures on the screen show Pablo Picasso's work, and it's mentioned as he is mentioned rather as the greatest painter of his century. And the National Day of Spain, once again, is commemorating the arrival of Christopher Columbus in the Americas. And the Spanish National Day is widely celebrated by many countries on the 12th of October every year, dating back to 1935 when it was first celebrated, which was in honor of Spain's strong ties to the Hispanic community. There we go, the Spanish National Day is being celebrated today. Now, after the commercial break, we are going to be focusing very in detail rather about the US presidential elections, and to talk about it more we have a special guest in the studio. But before that, let's head on to a short commercial break and we'll be back in Good Morning Sri Lanka. Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Sri Lanka on MTV Sports, and just before the commercial break we were taking a look at some of the headlines and the stories of the past week. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to focus on the US presidential elections, and to do that in the studio we have Ms. Anuradha Herath. Very good morning to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Right, so let's just cut to the chase and let's just take a look at the polls as of now. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, as we discussed last week also on the polls, we try to ask people to look at a number of polls rather than just focusing on one. And it seems like since the first presidential debate that Romney has improved in the polls. Most of the polls, in fact, show an increase for Romney. But overall, the race is still very, very close. It's just a couple of points difference between President Barack Obama and Governor Mitt Romney. But I think the point that the Republicans at least are trying to make is that it's on the upward trend for Mitt Romney, whereas before they were a little bit worried that the gap was widening between the president and the governor, but now it seems like the race is even more close. Yes,
and the table turner, I would say, of the last week was obviously the presidential debate, and we have a summary of the presidential debate, so let's